In this video, I'm showing steps that I took to make this little hodgepodge garden path. I came up with it as a solution to a side of our yard that was always a problem. It's this small narrow area between the concrete and our fence line that's about 5 feet on one end and then narrows down to like 2 feet on another end. And it was on a slope. So I came up with a way to use old stones and rocks and bricks that we had already laying around the yard and a couple bags of concrete. Once I knew exactly where I wanted the path to begin and I'd gathered my materials to get started, I needed to make sure to put something between where the new concrete would start and the old concrete that already existed. So since this is where my path is going to begin, I put a board right up against the existing concrete. I didn't stake it down or anything like that. I just grabbed an old fence plank and simply laid it there just so I can have some type of barrier. And since this is the first step to the path from the concrete, I used sand to raise it up a little higher. I didn't want the step down to be so dramatic, so I used sand to bring the level up a little bit, and the sand held the board in place just fine while I poured concrete. I would say the path surface is about 50% concrete and 50% a hodgepodge mix of various stones and rocks. Whenever I had a long stretch where I did need to go straight and I didn't have enough big stones to make that edge, I laid another old fence plank along the side and I put stones on the outside of it to hold it in place. I didn't stake it down, I just put a heavier rock on the outside, so when I spread the concrete out, it just kind of held things in place. As I was creating this path, I kept in mind which way that water needs to flow off the path, so I just used a small trowel to create these little slopes. And this is about the time that I was second guessing the way the edge was coming out. I really didn't care for how choppy the edge was. It was just too bulky and jagged for the look I was going for, and I had quite a ways to go still. And since I wasn't crazy about the jagged edge, I decided to take a break for a few days and think of something I could do to fix that before continuing to make more of this pathway. So this is exactly how I left the project for about a week until being able to start it up again. Once I came back to the project, the first thing that I did is remove the wooden boards. They came out very easy. And now I could begin fixing the jagged edges that I wasn't happy with. So one of the things that I used to fix my edges was this landscaping edging that I got from the hardware store. And I just cut it into sections and taped it with regular masking tape. And I decided just to make these different sizes and lay them out in a random path-like fashion. All different sizes and all different shapes, and I left different size gaps between here and there so I could have little pockets to plant in. And I used both stones and stakes to hold this in place because I wasn't sure how much the sides would give when the concrete was poured in there, and they both ended up working fine. The stones actually, I think, allow for more curvy random shapes if you have enough to go in different curves and hold them in. You can see I even used a pot on one side to hold that curve in, and then I just placed random pebbles and stones and stuff that I had on top of the concrete and tapping them in with a mallet. And somewhere online I had seen a trick where they made leaf impressions in concrete, so I put a fern leaf in one of the path stones just to see if it really works. This edging turned out to be really versatile for the area that I was making the path in. Not only for the really narrow area of the path, but also to fix the jagged edges that I wasn't happy with. It was really easy to bend this landscape edging around the jagged portions of my previous path and then just hold it in place with stones while I filled that gap with concrete. I do like the way this came out a lot better, but as the season went on, that edge was less and less visible. There was even a time where a lantana had actually covered the entire path. So the edge, if I had to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't worry about it as much as I did. One of the best things about this project is concrete is self-leveling. And at this angle, if you look down the path, you can see how on one side of the form, the concrete's actually higher. So I think that this is the best way to create any type of path along a slope. Another problem that this pathway is solving for me is erosion away from the existing slab. So this was the perfect solution for helping to keep dirt where it needs to be in this little area. Once everything was done, I realized I needed 2 more steps on the other end of the path. Since these steps would be a little smaller, I decided to use blinds to hold the concrete in since it would be easier to cut smaller pieces. And the area was a little too small to use big stones to hold the edges in place, so I ended up using stakes for this. And I'm just as happy with the results of using the blinds and the landscape edging. I actually do not prefer one over the other. In my opinion, they both did the exact job that I wanted them to do.